Welcome back, everyone. On this week's episode of the podcast, we're going to be mixing it up a little bit. This episode was recorded on Jordan Pendleton's podcast, where she interviewed me about how attachment styles show up in our relationship with money. And overall, the conversation today is about scarcity and abundance. Jordan and I are able to dig into our attachment styles and how our family system and upbringing actually influences our relationship with money. How is this important for us in our community where we're talking about authentic dating in the modern era with text messages, social media, and dating apps as a way that people connect and communicate? Well, our relationship with money is a lot like our relationship with others and our relationship with self. Our money conversation is oftentimes founded on our foundation of self-worth and what we believe to be true about ourselves. And that's also how we relate to the world through our attachment styles. What I would really appreciate from you guys is to share with me how you relate and connect with the content in this episode by giving us a review of the podcast. Head on over to your favorite podcast platform and give us a 5-star or hell, a 1-star review on this podcast to let me know what you think. It really brings a lot of opportunity for me to expand on what we talk about on the podcast when I receive those reviews. So take a moment, pause the episode right now, head on over to your favorite podcast platform and leave us an honest review. I'm super excited to bring you this episode today as Jordan Pendleton interviews me on her podcast. If you want to learn more about Jordan and what she does at the Revenue Tribe, click the link in the show notes and connect with her today. Without further delay, let's get into today's episode with Jordan Pendleton. I'm Dave Glazer. I'm a personal trainer, TikTok creator, and founder of Dave Glazer Coaching. After a couple of breakups in 2017, I became obsessed with understanding relationships, the way people connect, and along this journey, I have created a life and podcast dedicated to lifelong learning and exploring how we communicate with each other through modern dating and text messaging, social media, and dating apps. This podcast brings the industry's top experts in relationship. Through best-selling authors, speakers, and real-life daters, we discuss the struggles, the celebrations, the fears we face, and all the wonder that relationships can bring into our lives. Please subscribe to the podcast and connect with me on Instagram and TikTok to take a candid look into modern dating.
Welcome back to Real Money Talk. I am real excited. As you know, everybody who's been listening for a while, I am a very curious person, so I like noodle on things a lot. Enneagram 5. So I started thinking, I've been hearing a lot more about and like exploring my own attachment style and got really curious about how our attachment style impacts our relationship with money. Is it similar or parallel to, how we interact within like interpersonal relationships? And then there's always that fun layer of personal relationships and money as well. So brought my friend Dave Glazer back on. I'm really excited that he's here. He did the Enneagram overview actually last summer. So if you missed that, go back. It was awesome. It kicked off a 10-week series of going into the Enneagram. So don't miss that. But today we're talking attachment styles because that's also a realm that Dave plays in that I'm always like on his Instagram, like loving all of it. So I thought it'd be fun to have him back on, and he was game for this conversation with money. So thanks for being on, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me back. The first conversation was a lot of fun. And now we're talking about the second of my favorite things in the world, attachment styles.
Yes, your Enneagram and attachment styles. Is there 3 or 4 things that you kind of like bring into the relationship?
Yeah, I do love talking about the Enneagram. It's probably my top thing. Enneagram for relationships is my top focus. And then we cannot discuss modern relationships without understanding at least a little bit about attachment styles. Mm-hmm. And then the last component of what I really focus on is modern dating, which is text messaging, social media, and dating apps as a way that people connect and communicate.
Juicy.
Oh yes, it's an endless amount of things to discuss in the world, in the modern world.
Yeah, love it. Well, in my poll on Instagram, as I was telling Dave, I put this out on Instagram that I was going to be interviewing him. And there were some people that did not know what attachment styles were. And so, Dave, can you give an overview of what it is and like what the types are? And we'll use that as a starting place.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about it. 30,000-foot view of what attachment theory is. It's been around for about 50 years. It was began researching attachment styles in the 60s, and they came up with now there's about 6 attachment styles, but today for our conversation we'll only cover the top 3. So the 3 that we'll discuss are securely attached, avoidantly attached, and anxiously attached. And as per the name describes, about 50% of the population is securely attached. This is known to show up in relationships based on what you were taught as a child and what you observed modeled for you as in your environment. So the good news is that 50% of us are securely attached as we go into adulthood. About 20% of the population is anxiously attached, which actually originates from a childhood of maybe your experience was like, I don't know where my next moment of love will come from. It's very unpredictable. And so as a young formative years in your childhood, you're going to really cling to that caregiver that does give you some attention, but then that caregiver might pull it away at any random moment. So you just really develop this central nervous system that can't be held, basically. And that's what an anxiously attached style feels like as a child. And then in adult relationships, it mirrors that too. So that's 20% of the population. And then 25% of the population is avoidantly attached, where we have a more than healthy fear of relationships, of intimacy, of closeness. And that came from a childhood of a place where emotional availability was absent or really very little of it. So as a child, you were taught to take care of your own needs first because you had caregivers that weren't going to be there for you. And then the final 5% of the population is known as disorganized attachment. Psychotics, sociopaths, narcissists, and then the other 3 attachment styles, fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant, and then anxious preoccupied fall into that 5%.
Part of me is like really shocked that there's 50% of the population that is secure. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just the work that I do. I'm like, we're around a lot of people that are already like kind of working through this, that are very like aware of their attachment style. So I'm like, oh, well, everybody is like, has something like, I don't know.
Right.
Like, it's surprising to me. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, what I hear you describing is something that I came across as well like attracts like. And when you have an avoidant attachment style, which I tend to lean towards most, the natural gravitation of the polarity attracts an anxiously attached partner. And so the avoidant and the anxious never really see the securely attached for who they are, because securely attached people in relationships, they come out of the dating pool much faster. And they don't tend to speak to the struggles in relationship much like an anxious or an avoidant person would, because they don't experience it in the same way that we do. They know what secure love is supposed to feel like. It doesn't mean that they're not going to get triggered or reactionary or reactive to their partner. And it doesn't mean they're not going to have fights in their relationship. It just means that they know how to repair it once that infraction occurs.
Yeah. I'm like, oh shit. Like, oh, we're going here. Okay. Yeah.
It's we got to get real with this conversation, and it will definitely be confronting, both in our romantic and familiar relationships, maybe even coworkers too. It's confronting there, but it's especially confronting in the relationship with money.
Yeah. Explain that.
Yeah, let's dig in. Let's just start off.
Let's just go in. Yeah.
Let's hit it out of the park with the first topic of conversation. So what I mean by confronting is that, let's say that you and your partner are repeatedly discussing and arguing over money. This could happen in any type of relationship, securely attached, the anxious avoidant trap. Any of the above relationships can have arguments about money. It's known as like one of the top 3 things that people argue about in marriages. And one of the top reasons it's cause for divorce is arguing about money.
Yeah.
The Gottman Institute actually calls that perpetual problems. And about 65% of our arguments never actually go away in marriages. And this is one of them. This conversation, this argument, this discussion about money, because things can change throughout our lives, right? So when we go to our partner, it's oftentimes bringing up emotions in our body when we want to talk to our partner about money. And this is how it becomes confronting for us, is money holds up a mirror for us to look at our own insecurities, much like a partner does too. Is that relatable?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. They're two kind of simultaneous things for me. Well, I am married to somebody who has a secure attachment style, and I have definitely leaned towards that avoidant attachment. Very like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want, like, no, thank you. Just that story of like, it's gonna bring up problems. It's gonna create a fight. So don't talk about it. Don't talk about it, and it'll just be fine. Close your eyes and, hope it gets better. But you're totally right. Like, the second we engage in a more intimate partnership, it brings to the surface all the things that, especially as an avoidant attachment style, that I've tried to run from for a really long time, and dismiss. So, and that money piece is always like, now that I don't see it as like it's trying to make my life terrible and destroy me, it's like, oh, there's something to learn and grow from in here that is reflecting back a deeper truth to me, just as my husband does. And usually the two are correlated, especially if we're talking about money.
I can understand that completely. And something that you're sharing in there about your avoidant attachment style, not wanting to look at it, not wanting to discuss it. Well, that behavior is very similar to, say, like how an anxious person would show up in their adult relationships as well, talking about money. However, the anxiously attached person might be like, oh, I'm not going to ask my partner about their experience with money because I don't want them to leave me because I'm prying, or because I'm invading space, or because I'm too much, right? So the anxiously attached person is going to be taking care of their partner's experience when it comes to money. The avoidantly attached person might actually avoid the conversation because they don't want their partner to leave them because of their own relationship with money. Like, I don't want my partner to see me for my flaws, because when they do, they will leave me.
That's me for sure, that one.
And I can totally relate to that as well, being an avoidant attachment style myself.
You'd think, because you're a challenger on the Enneagram, right?
Yes.
I guess, I don't know where, these, if any type can be any attachment style, but I would think there would be a much more, I don't know, just like my preconceived notions, I guess, would be a much more like forthcoming, like honest, let's lay it on the table kind of thing. So
I appreciate you giving me that reflection through the Enneagram, because when I discovered the Enneagram, that was a precursor to the attachment styles. I felt as if like the Enneagram was a great lens to view myself and the world through tendencies and through how I show up. So what I learned through the Challenger personality type is that I have a fear of vulnerability. Well, the money talk is very vulnerable, right? Exposing some insecurities and some wounds for me as an 8. And then when it comes down to the money talk, well, then there's that fear of vulnerability as well, of like, if I'm vulnerable and transparent and authentic and honest with my partner, will they leave me for that because of my insecurities around money? And so I really appreciate you bringing the Enneagram back into the conversation, because what's known about our Enneagram type is that it gets solidified in a certain time frame of our late childhood, early teens, early adulthood. And why it's so curious for me to know both of these, why it's so beneficial for me to know both of these typing systems, is because they were solidified at the same exact time for me. Yeah, my challenger personality type came from trauma in my late teens, but so did my avoidant attachment style. And then how does that trickle down to my relationship with money? Well, my relationship with money really only shows up when I get into partnership, because the conversation I'm having about money is with myself, and I can keep that to myself and not be vulnerable when I'm not in partnership. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, it's super easy to kind of like just hide it and figure it out ourselves if we're not in that relationship where we are essentially forced to talk about it.
Yeah, and held accountable too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, that's a big, you can see why it creates so many challenges, but I know also, and I'm sure you do too, like through that challenge, there's also like an opportunity for something out, like for something new, a new possibility that could come through. So how do we actually use our attachment styles to look at this stuff and not just be like crippled by it and be like, oh, I'm avoidant, that's me.
Yeah.
Like a victim to our, our tendencies, but actually like use it to engage and like have better conversations and
that's a really valuable question. And I love the word grow that you just said there, that the Enneagram is a lens at which we can look for a path of growth. And so are attachment styles. And a good example that I could use to answer your question is the anxiously attached person, whether it be in their relationship with an intimate partner, coworker, family member, or their relationship with money. Let's use their partnership as an example here. An anxiously attached person needs to continuously ask themselves, can my partner meet my needs? And when they are forthcoming about their needs, like continuously voicing their needs of like, hey, I'm in this partnership too. I'm here too. I have needs and these are what they are. And when their partner reassures them through long-term intimate closeness and reassurance that they're going to meet those needs, well, then the anxiously attached person can actually earn security in the relationship. And one way that a couple can earn security in a relationship is through the money talk. So if an anxiously attached person goes to their partner and they say, hey, I'm afraid to have this conversation with you because I'm afraid you'll leave me because of my insecurities around money. And then the partner responds in a reassuring and a structured way of like, I'm here to support you because you're my partner. Well, then the anxiously attached person can kind of settle in their anxiety around money and go to their partner, know that their partner is a trusted person. This could be a business coach. This could be an executive coach, any type of relationship. They can go to that person and be honest because they're going to have that security that this person won't think less of me. How does that land for you?
Yeah, that's really good and probably beneficial on both sides to know, because I'm sure there's things you could say, the partner that is working with somebody that's anxious, like I'm sure there's things you can say that will trigger their insecurities and like make them not feel safe. So like knowing this about the person you're working with and the partner you have to create that safety for there to be like an opportunity. That's really good.
Yeah, appreciate you reflecting that back as as what we're talking about is relationships with other people are very similar to our relationships with money. If we're feeling anxious around our partnerships or our friendships, we're going to check in with those people quite a bit via text or via social media or email or calls. Hey, I want closeness with you. Well, the anxiously attached person might actually behave the same way in their relationship with money, of like frequently checking their bank account. Like, are you there for me? Are you going to leave me? And if they have this attachment to money in a way where it's graspy and they hold on to it and they cling to it, well, then money is not going to flow like the universe will provide.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, they get a little clingy and maybe even suffocate it, cut off the flow because there's fear. How do you do that? I mean, can venture some guesses, but like essentially, and why I love the conversation money is like, it is a one-way conversation because money doesn't actually talk back to you. It's just all the crap we've wrapped around it.
That's right.
And what we're perceiving of it. So how do you create safety if you're an anxious attachment? How do you create safety within that relationship with money that's an inanimate object?
Yeah, you're onto something here. I think that when we create a story around money, we're placing a value on it. And when we don't internally value ourselves, how an anxiously attached person has a lot of insecurities around things leaving them because that's what they saw in their childhood. Maybe their environment showed them that money was scarce and that money was not available and money was hard to find. And that kept us in this loop or the narrative from our childhood, much like how our attachment styles get formed. Our environment influences our narrative around money. And so we take that into our adulthood. And the way that we heal our intimate relationships is the same way that we heal our relationship with money. Through facing it, yes, and developing a more resilient central nervous system to understand that everything will be okay. Money comes and goes, partners come and go, and the universe or God or our spiritual connection will provide.
So is our goal to become if I had to put a goal around it, my little achiever, like, is the goal to become a secure attachment? Is that like
to money or in relationships?
Either, both,
yeah.
any.
Yeah.
That's like the ideal scenario.
I think that that's true. I think that earning security in our relationship with money is our goalpost. You know, I like to aim for goals. I don't like to call them goals. I like to say, what is your aim here? What is your aim with your relationship with money? What would you like to aim towards? Because if we set a goal, we're more than likely going to miss it, because I have some stretch goals on my wall back here that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're meant to be big goals because I'm aiming towards them.
Yeah.
I'm not aiming because I know I'm going to hit them, because I don't really want to receive that. I don't want failure to become part of my process to earn security. I want the journey along the way to reinforce my security with myself, of like, as long as I'm aimed at the direction at which I want to go with my relationship with money, then I'm good. Then I'm learning and I'm staying disciplined. And it's just one step in front of the other on my way.
That's good. Yeah. Like that's something that reinforces when I tie my attachment to money and like the circumstance. Did I hit the goal? Did I not? Did I pay off the debt? Did I, like, that can really dictate and reinforce my avoidance. If I'm using that as my goalpost,
right,
if you will, and letting my circumstances tell me whether I'm safe, as opposed to knowing internally that I'm safe, whether or not I hit that goal, like I'm okay. I'm going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make it through. But that's a huge thing that I've gotten caught up in, of like being very attached to that goal being a metric of whether I'm good or whether I'm okay or whether I'm safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I'm hearing you describe is like two opportunities here. You labeled the narrative that you currently have when it's in the context of goals. That is my goal, to pay this off. Well, if I reframe it and say my aim is to pay off that credit card debt, well, then what did I do on my path to get to that aim? Like, am I on track or did I deviate? Those are really the only two options here. Am I on track or did I deviate? There's no value statement placed on that. Well, if we're deviating from our career path or from our money path or from our relationship path, we have an opportunity to just course correct, as opposed to like a full on wall that comes up in front of you. That's like, well, I didn't hit my goal, so I'm just going to stop. How does that hit you?
I've really had to like, I previously did a lot of stop start because of that, because of letting that circumstance dictate to me, for me, like whether I'm good or not. So I did do a lot of stop start. The last 2 years has been like a really big practice for me of like having the discipline, showing up. And I like that realignment, or like rephrase of aim versus goal. But I do see a lot of people, and I see, here in the fitness world too, I see a lot of people do that with their fitness journeys, letting those, results kind of dictate whether or not they keep going. And I think what you're describing is like really actually enjoying and embracing that journey and knowing there's going to be deviations from the line, and that you'll be okay anyways. Like you're still going to be okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. And I really appreciate you bringing up the relationship with our body too. Our money story is involved in our relationship and our view of our body too. Like when we are taking care of our body, making it a priority and being disciplined on our aim to improve our body composition or to get stronger, etc., well, then we're going to invest in ourselves with better gym membership or a personal trainer of like, okay, this is my relationship with money showing up in my fitness aim, my goals there. I aim to lose 20 pounds this year. How did I deviate from that? Well, my relationship with money came into play when I actually went grocery shopping. I didn't invest in what I was putting in my shopping cart because of my relationship with money, which then affects my relationship with my body, which then creates that downward spiral.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you bringing up that additional relationship that's still tied in with money too.
Yeah, I mean, money touches that's why I think it's so interesting, is it touches every single aspect of our lives. It's interwoven in every aspect of our life. So therefore, if we have a, not so great relationship with it, or we have a avoidant or attached, anxious attachment with it, it's going to ripple into every single other aspect of our life too. Like unavoidably.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely relate to that. And I know that we touched a little bit on the anxious attachment style and how they grasp and they cling and they hold on to money, and their relationship is based around insecurity. Did you want to dive into the avoidant relationship with money? Okay. Because sometimes I see myself as an avoidantly attached person, not wanting to look at anything. I don't want to check my bank account after a long weekend because I don't want to see what happened, or I don't want to actually look at my long-term finances because I just don't want to see what's there. Right.
Yep.
And an example from my own life, that's where I was at, like right before the pandemic, right before I had to sit in my own stuff and actually look at my myself in the mirror for really a long, hard look. Thankfully, I reached out and I found a really great coach at that time. And this is a key piece of the puzzle is I lost my job and I wasn't receiving unemployment. So I was really concerned about money. And I have a really generous family support system that was, no matter what, going to help me through. I didn't want to be there anymore. I don't want to rely on systems that are not within my control, like the government or my family system, who, yes, is generous. They will not let me fail, right? So I was concerned about money. And then this coach posted, okay, guys, I know you're going to need some support. We don't know what's going on in the world right now. Here's 2 months of coaching free. It's group, right? So now there's almost 500 members in this group. And it's where I go to with my challenges, especially around money. About 6 months into that group, there was a money talk. And the men in this group are my accountability partners, and they will not let me avoid anything in my life. When they hear me speak on a subject like money, they're going to be like, Dave, I got a question for you. Let me just clarify what you meant by this. And part of that monthly challenge was to put $5 a week into an Acorns account. Super simple, right? $5 a week is not a lot of money, but it was to me at that time because I had absolutely no idea what my financial future was going to look like because I wasn't looking at it. I was avoiding it, right? And then two, the second challenge that I took upon myself was also a $5 per week donation to my church. I had absolutely no idea where I was going to get $10 a week because of just the financial catastrophe that happened in my life. And as coaches, sometimes I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't want to be seen as flawed, right? Because I want to be seen as like the go-to person that's always strong, that's always a rock. And what I learned through this process was that coaches are fallible. And when we are not, and when we're not as seen as human, then we're not being human. We're not part of the experience with our clients, right? And so I started to share this experience that I was going through about like my concern around money. I had $2,000 in the bank. I didn't know where my next paycheck was going to come from. I started sharing this experience and people were listening and they were concerned with me. They were my support system. And they stood up and they're like, well, I'll loan you $10,000, Dave. I'm like, no, that enables me to continue to not look at my own finances as an avoidantly attached person. I know that's not what's best for me. So each person who was like, hey, I'll loan you some money. What do you need? I'm like, let's scratch that conversation. If you're going to loan me that much money, come into an investor as an investor in my business. And the conversation happened. And over the course of 2020, I raised $40,000 in investment revenue into my business. So what did I do? I took a look at where I was at. I no longer hid behind that veil that I held up in front of my own mirror. And I started to voice my own concerns and be vulnerable, which is against everything that the challenger wants to do, right? And an avoidant.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So the conversation started around something I'm passionate about, which is the Fit Life brand. And people were supporting me and they said, yeah, that sounds like a really good deal. I don't want to enable you either. I don't want you to be codependent on anything, which is truly what our attachment styles are, is codependency at its core.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want the future of my life at 40 years old to be like that. And so we structured the business and I still own 60% and my investors have 40%. And now my number one aim in my life, while looking at my relationship or while looking through my life, through my relationship with money, my aim is to grow that business so that we all win, clients, my investors, and myself. But by doing that, by aiming in that direction, I raised my own salary. I answered one question. Two, I answered another question of like, how can I give back both to my church community and also invest in my future at a minimal investment just to start?
Yeah.
And here we are 2 years later, I've tripled my income because I wasn't satisfied with being the avoidant, not looking at my bank account, not having the conversation that was really challenging for me, and being a little bit vulnerable.
A lot of it.
Yeah, scary stuff, right? Scary stuff.
Takes guts and commitment. Thank you for sharing that. That's Yeah, I totally resonate with what you're saying. You know, as the coach, it's like, well, I don't want to be seen as like weak, and I want people to like know that I know what I'm talking about and blah blah blah. It's like that expert mentality that I think, you know, we're told to be the expert, but you're right, so much of this, part of this is being, and so much of the value that we actually give back is by being an active participant and letting people be along for that ride as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what a shift too. I mean, to like let people, I think that I was thinking about that too. I'm like, you know, a lot of people listening to this are entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial. I'm like, is the entrepreneur world just like bred for, I've realized myself, like a lot of why I haven't wanted to get jobs and all this stuff is my avoidant attachment. Like
Yeah, tell me more.
I don't want to be like trapped in any place. I like my Enneagram 7, like stress swing comes out like real strong. And I'm like, I don't want to be trapped. I don't want you to like tell me what I need to do or who I need to be. And like entrepreneurship made the most sense
Mm-hmm.
for me. So like, I know it's like a very broad, it would be a very broad statement to put on, but I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and they have that fear too of like being,
Right. Fear of being controlled, fear of being
mm-hmm,
told what to do. And I can also relate so much to what you were sharing is around the value that I placed with myself of this has a lot to do with my money story as well. So if I don't value myself as much as I would like to, if I don't have the self-esteem, if I don't have the confidence, I may not actually apply for the job that's out of reach because I don't feel worthy. And the same thing comes
mm,
in with the salary that's attached to that job. You know, like, do we go to Indeed uh, when say we're not entrepreneurs and we are career minded and we want to work with other people? We go to Indeed and we're like, okay, I'll accept 60 grand. You know, that'll help me get by. Well, that's our money story. And it comes from our self-worth and how we value ourselves. Well, I want to challenge people who are stuck in this repeated pattern of like not accepting what they're worth, not taking what they value in themselves. And I want you to double the income and put that in your search in Indeed or in LinkedIn or anywhere that you're searching for your job. Double it and see what jobs actually show up, because the way that the way that our culture in America has changed in the last 2 years benefits the job searcher, right?
mm-hmm,
Who's in demand now? It's the person who wants to work. So salaries went through the roof because we know that, well, inflation has something to do with that, but also home values and et cetera. It's the culture. With the Great Resignation, people were like, I value myself more than I value this dollar amount. And they started going for like, I'm going to 1.5x my salary. I'm going to 2x my salary this year, and I won't accept anything less. And there are still jobs available at that upper echelon. And I guarantee there are fewer people applying for that 6-figure job because they themselves don't value themselves and don't find themselves worthy of that dollar amount. So they're not even going to look at it.
mm, good. That's so good. I'm gonna like audio clip that out for people. How do we do that as entrepreneurs? Like we're in charge, right? Like
Yeah,
of,
we are.
we are in charge of what we charge people and how we engage, and like there is no salary, right? So, and that's
Mm-hmm.
part of the gift and the curse of
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. So
Yeah.
how do we step into doing that in this
I'm going to
realm?
phenomenal question. I appreciate you asking. And going back to where I was at the beginning of COVID and we were sheltering in place, and I do have a value of community in my business. So the first couple of months of COVID, $10 a month, guys. Here's my fitness program. I want you to work out at home while it's temporary. We believed it would be temporary. I'm like, all right, guys,
2
10
years
bucks a month.
later.
Yeah. I want to take care of my community. I want fitness to be accessible for people at home. So we just created body weight workout programs. 2 years later, we have 65 workouts available, and I started at $10 a month. Was I valuing myself with that dollar amount? No, but I was valuing the situation. I took a look at what was happening in the world, and I said, here's my gift to fitness and nutrition for $10 a month. 2 years later, that same program is $97 a month. So what we can do as entrepreneurs is take our low value offer and our high value offer and really analyze, take the veil off of ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror and say, what am I worth? Every single year, we want to take a reevaluation of our subscription or of our coaching packages, and we want to raise our prices every single year. That does three things for us. One, we work with fewer clients, but we make more money. Sounds good, right?
What most people are looking for.
Mm-hmm. Two, it's positive reinforcement for us as coaches or as guides or as leaders in the community. Is like, a year from now, I would want to be better at what I do, and I'm going to attach money. It's part of the money story. It's like, I'm increasing my own self-worth over time through education. And how do we put a dollar amount on that? Well, every year we reevaluate what we're offering. Mm-hmm. How much did I learn this year? How much more experience? What kind of feedback did I receive from my clients? And then I'm going to increase my prices every year. And then finally, that third piece is really more about the relationship we have with ourselves in our core limiting beliefs. How do I look at myself and say, I am worthy? I am worthy of 2x my income last year. And then I'm going to set an aim at that dollar amount. And I will most likely fall short. And that's okay, because it does not change the value at which I am as a person. I am still worthy of $200,000. I'm still worthy of $300,000.
Love that. I love it because it's like so counter to a lot of the things that we hear in the entrepreneurial world. It's all about, just like do it big and go big or go home and crush everyone else along the way. And I think that narrative's changing a lot, but it, not letting money, how much we're making, define who we are and what we really bring to the world, to the table, to our clients, to our communities, and receiving like in exchange for that. That's pretty much all it is at the end of the day. If we boil it all down, it's just an exchange.
Yeah, the narrative that you were describing in the entrepreneur world sounds very typical to what an unhealthy 8 would say, of like, steamroll my competition and win at all costs, and I'm going to take what I can get. And when I work with personal trainers as their business coach, or I have interns from the Metro State here in town, and I coach them. We got a new one starting next week. And every single time that I work with these interns and personal trainers out there building a business, they always want to set their prices at $30 an hour, $25 an hour to start. Well, Dave, I don't have any experience. Oh, well, let's talk about that. You have a 4-year degree. You have classes at Metro State, which I graduated from, in exercise science program that every other personal trainer in 10 years of experience would not have as knowledge. You have a 4-year degree and you have a certification and you have an internship that has taught you how to actually apply the knowledge that you gain. So we have this conversation about their hourly rate every single year. Every single intern thinks the same. Well, I'm not good enough. And when we detach the conversation from the hourly rate and talk about, what are you worth? What is your time worth right now? And then every year, please raise it $5 a year, every year. And 10, 12 years into my business, my hourly rate is $125 an hour. And it helps me make other decisions in my life of like, what is my time worth?
Mm.
Is my time worth arguing with a client who wants a $100 refund? No, because it's probably going to take me an hour to do it. Well, I just lost $125 plus the $100. So now this is the culmination of our conversation. I'm actually looking at what is my time worth? And I'm charging more for it every single year because 2 years ago, finally took a look beyond my avoidant attachment style. And I took a look at my relationship to money, and I challenged myself to grow beyond where I was stuck.
Which, hey, challengers love a good challenge, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. But
Well,
avoidantly attached people do not.
Say we do, but we don't
we tend not to like to be challenged.
Yeah, that was a hard look in the mirror for me of like, I say I want to grow. I say like all these things, but my actions are showing me otherwise. My actions and results are showing me that I actually like to be right. And I like to stay here and actually looking at it and facing it and challenging ourselves to, press into those very uncomfortable, like squirmy conversations. And knowing we'll be okay through it. I think
I can so relate to that.
What I hear you say, and that was actually my last week's interview with Catherine Hammond. We talk about like finding hope beyond our circumstances. So like finding that place of like, I'm okay. At the end of the day, I'm okay. And I hear you, saying that too, with that secure attachment. So any like big final, or like if you had one thing you wanted to share, or a tip for moving into that secure attachment, I don't know, and one last like most important thing to hit on before we close.
Thank you very much for that opportunity. I think that in a lot of areas of our lives, we can apply a simple acronym and use it as a mirror for our own behavior and our own narrative that we've created around money or relationships or our fitness goals or whatever area of life. And it's an acronym that's DEER. When I am trying to defend, excuse, explain away, or rationalize my behavior, I am definitely looking into the mirror at a place that needs some attention. If I'm trying to defend my actions and my behavior to my partner, I'm probably getting a little reactive, and there's something to take a look at. When I'm trying to rationalize an expenditure in my business to my business coach or to my men's group or the support system around me, it's likely that there's something underneath that. So defend, excuse, explain away, or rationalize our behavior is something to take a look at.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Time to look in the mirror. That's so good. Thanks for sharing that. That's really helpful.
I appreciate you, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Where can people connect with you if they want to learn more, get your dating tips, fitness stuff? Where's Dave?
Dating, relationship. We're going to take a candid look at dating and relationships and fitness in the modern world. You can find me by searching my name, Dave Glazer, on Instagram, TikTok, or Google.
Great. Yeah, I'll link it all up in the show notes. So definitely go. I'm actually not on TikTok, but I see the videos you post on Instagram. And so I appreciate them. And it's very fun. Very fun to follow. Very relatable. So
yeah, thank you so very much. Yeah.
Well, this was awesome. Went so many different directions, but exactly what I was hoping for. So thanks for being here, Dave.
I'm glad to hear that. Thanks again, Jordan. Let's talk soon.
Yep. Sounds good. See you guys next week.
Thank you so very much for tuning into this week's episode of the podcast. If you are looking for a little bit more support in your relationships, life, and career right now, go ahead and join the challenge group starting soon. We're going to take a look at modern dating through 5 pillars of optimal health so that you can show up as your most authentic self, resilient, and grateful for the life that you have. Click the link in the show notes below or the bio on my Instagram account at DaveGlazer_CSCS to join today. Until next week, this is Dave Glazer in Denver, Colorado, wishing you health and happiness wherever you're at in the world.